Hey there, I'm Christopher Schoenwald, and welcome to Life as a show intently focused on helping people find their professional pathway by exploring and unearthing the details of jobs from around the world. For as long as we've been enjoying the modern world of arts and entertainment, there's been a formula in behind that has been worked to perfection. It involves the crafting of content, characters, and the selection of strategic mediums. Now, as consumers, this puppetry and pulling of strings is not something we often think about. Yet, the quality of that work, whether it's television, movie, or nowadays, social content, is often what leads to hit shows, celebrity, and ultimately commerce of some shape or form. Now, to help crystallize this idea, consider your favorite YouTuber or traditional celebrity. There's a very high probability that that person is being guided along in his or her career by talent experts and managers who are attempting to maximize the growth opportunities, financial or otherwise, that person exhibits. Well, on today's show, our guest is someone who is involved in that type of management. What makes his work extra compelling is that he's working in a very specific manner and with types of talent that are quickly redefining what we as consumers consider as attractive and believable voices in the field of marketing and entertainment. All right, welcome to the show. So, Chris Ryan is a talent manager based in Los Angeles. He started his entertainment career at the top talent agency, WME. He then went on to be a development executive with production companies on the Universal and Disney studio lots. His first foray into talent management was representing feature writers and reality producers at a boutique talent management firm before forming his own Oceanside Entertainment. He made major spec screenplay sales to Sony Pictures, Walt Disney Pictures, Fox, and Universal, as well as staffing clients on MTV, G4 TV, and ABC television shows. In 2005, he assisted a colleague in producing a pop-up lounge during the Sundance Film Festival. There, he fell in love with experiential marketing and event sponsorship, focusing on tentpole platforms associated with top award shows, music, and film festivals. Now, for 10 years, Chris has kept the master grid of all the parties at the Sundance Film Festival, which was used by media outlets, publicists, and industry players. The party list resulted in profiles in Business Week, ABC News, New York Times, Vanity Fair, and many others. Post-pandemic, he's returned to talent management, representing popular TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube creators. He still works with events, but is now packaging sponsorships with influencers to guarantee ROI for brands. Outside of events and talent management, Chris is a big fan of Broadway plays and musicals. He's been a co-producer on Dr. Zhivago on Broadway and is currently involved in the tour of Ain't Too Proud, the Temptations musical, through his friend, Wendy Fetterman. So with all that stated, Chris, welcome to the show. It's great to meet you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really excited to get into this. I mean, it's a field, I think, that not a lot of people really kind of get to kind of peek behind that curtain. You know, we always see what's facing us, you know, whether it's through the talent directly. But I think it'd be really fascinating to learn a little bit more what's going on behind the scenes. So yeah, for that reason alone, I think it's going to be a really interesting talk. So yeah, thanks again for coming on.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, I had the first segment lined up, and it's something called Coloring Wikipedia. As my listeners know, it's basically a segment I just read off a definition of the profession's work and what they do. I do it for a couple of reasons. One, it kind of brings everybody up to speed on what the profession is all about. And then two, sometimes Wikipedia is on, and sometimes it's just flat out, missing points or it's just inaccurate. So I think it's a really nice point to kind of start the discussion. So I intentionally went with a fairly catch-all definition here of talent manager for you.
Right.
And yeah, just let me read that off, and maybe, within the context of all that you do, you can comment afterwards. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, here we go. Talent manager. So a talent manager, also known as an artist manager, band manager, or music manager, is an individual who guides the professional career of artists in the entertainment industry. The responsibility of the talent manager is to oversee the day-to-day business affairs of an artist, advise and counsel talent concerning professional matters, long-term plans, and personal decisions which may affect their career. There it is. So first thoughts, what do you think of that, Chris?
I think that's a good definition of a talent manager. And I think the key is guide the career. Whereas agents here, especially here in LA and New York, are more transactional. about closing deals and stuff like that. I'm more looking big picture for clients and find out what they're doing, how they're feeling about their career and what needs to be done. And then I also look for big, some other opportunities. So I will bring in other people to the team if needs be. If the client is big enough, I might bring in a publicist. If the client is going to be doing a lot of business stuff, I'll bring in an attorney to handle like a lot of the business stuff. There's so there's a little bit of distinction. Sometimes I think people get confused that talent manager and agent are the same thing. They're not. In fact, agencies in California and New York are highly regulated. They have to be bonded by the state of California, and they're only limited to a 10% commission. Whereas talent management can be it's anywhere, because you're not really necessarily you're not transactional, you're more career guidance. And
that's interesting. That. That's a really, I suppose the first gem of this conversation right out of the gate. I mean, that's something that, as an outsider, you wouldn't necessarily be aware of, I would say.
There's definitely a distinction sometimes, but sometimes it gets confusing. A lot of times, if I'm helping a client negotiate a deal, I might, if it's a really intense deal, I will bring in an outside attorney to handle the ifs, ands, and buts. Because I'll be honest with you, as much as I love contract law, it's not my forte. So, so if somebody came to me and said, "Hey, we want to put a menu item on a fast food restaurant's menu with the client's name," that would be a deal I'd probably bring somebody else in too.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. So, so I mean, things I work on. Well, obviously the brand deals come in, but I'm a big fan of not having that be influencers' main income. I want them to have a bunch of other sources of income, and so they don't have to depend on the ups and downs of brand deals. So things like that would be merch, is usually the first one that everybody goes to. I'm a big fan of unusual merch and things that normally you wouldn't see. I'm also a fan of clients who are like, maybe if there's somebody in the health and wellness space, instead of doing a deal with a protein powder brand, I'd rather if you're big enough, create your own brand. And there are companies out there. I've been just finding all sorts of interesting companies out there that will do that for you. That will literally design it, ship it, everything from drop shipping to you name it.
Get out of here.
And then I'm constantly talking to companies about the most unique ways of the creator economy, from companies like Jelly Smack, which takes your old content and remonetizes it on Facebook and Snapchat. So so content that's sitting on YouTube that's still making money can be edited and remonetized on those two other platforms. Or like companies like Pinterest, who are really interested in getting the short form video. So hey, I have a ton of TikTokers, and so they've been slowly ready to launch a new program where they're going to be able to pay their creators, very similar to what TikTok announced recently and YouTube. And also they have like little private programs that where they'll pay creators to start creating for their platform, and making sure that content's going there. Usually first. Usually it's like a first look deal in film and television. So they get kind of like the first crack at new stuff. So.
I mean, it shouldn't surprise me, like this entire ecosystem that's evolved around this creator economy, and especially in this conversation about influencers, with some of the stats that have come out in terms of that industry and its growth. I think we're going to touch upon that later in the talk today, but I mean, it still kind of blows your mind just how quickly all of this has come about, really, and still constantly evolving. I was aware of probably most of what you're just speaking of there, but then there was a couple things that I quite frankly hadn't heard about, and it just seems like every few months there's a new company that's popping up and offering this service and that service. So it's really quite interesting. I've got this other quick question too here while we're at it. In terms of, I guess, your work now with influencers, and then prior to that, I guess you're helping with writers and reality producers. What is the distinction of working between those two separate types of individuals essentially, right? I'm sure the demands and the needs are quite different. Would you be able to share a little insight on that?
Well, writers and producers, we have um, a set thing of buyers. I mean, there's only like so many studios. There's a bunch of indie companies that will buy product, but it was usually Fox, Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, Sony, New Line at the time, and Miramax and a bunch of other ones when I was working. But there was only a limited amount of buyers, and then you had to have relationships. Like it was not you can't cold call Disney and get them to return a call. Yeah. You have to have that relationship, right. And that's the key to that. With influencer marketing, it's a little bit easier because there's so many brands and there's so many buyers and there's so many people working in it. So a lot of my time is like, ask my clients, hey, who do you want to work with? And if none of the other managers here, talent managers at my company, know anybody, I'll go reach out. I'll go look them up on LinkedIn, reach out, cold call them, cold email, just standard sales stuff just to break down a door. So,
okay.
So I think that's the main difference. It's the limited amount of buyers. And also TV and film is very relationship focused. Like when I was managing writers and everything, my lunches, I always had a lunch, always had the drinks. So because that one-on-one relationship, I don't know, a lot of times, like a lot of people I deal with in influencer marketing, I rarely have met in person. So they're just either email or like a couple of them I've done, 6-figure deals that have been, or no, I'm sorry, 5-figure deals that have been like crazily like without just by email,
Really?
Like a lot of them don't want to like get on the phone or meet up or something like that yet. But then again, I started this going back to this in the pandemic because the event world fell apart, obviously, with the pandemic. And then, it's been, that's, I think, the main difference. It's like the buyers are kind of limited. So,
well, it sounds like it was a pretty, a decent pivot for you during that time. I mean,
I love the event world. I'm still like involved with it. I just, but it was really interesting because influencer marketing and the event world were meshing a lot in my life as well. I can give you some examples of that. I befriended, like at certain events, like some very big YouTubers, and they didn't have anybody that would submit them to film premieres out here in LA or Oscar party. Well, I have those people. I know who those people are. Yeah. So I got like, I can tell you, I got like Jake Paul and Logan Paul to attend the Variety Oscar party, Variety Magazine pre-Oscar party. First time they've ever had an influencer walk the red carpet, which was interesting because none of the photographers would take pictures of them. They were like, who the hell are these people? And then, so I saw that and I walked up, I was walking in front, and there was like a bunch of video interviewers and podcasters, who knows. And those guys, I had to age shame them because I was like, oh wait, you're over 30, you won't understand this. Oh no. I ended up getting Logan and Jake a USA Today article out of that.
Wow.
And I'm not in their publicist or even pretending to be. I'm just like, hey, I'm befriended them and doing them a favor. Same with David Dobrik and Liza Koshy. I used to have to beg and plead for people to let them go to events, and now like they're so big.
Illustrates
probably pay them.
It illustrates how quickly everything has just been flipped, right? I mean, it's flipped now. Like the whole power dynamics. I mean, again, there's another question that's going to come up later on, I think. But it's really quite fascinating. Before we do get into that really quickly too, in terms of a typical day, what would you be involved in? I guess like a usual day for you.
Checking emails, calling people. It's like sales. It's really? Following up on things. It's and then talking to clients and making sure that they're happy, or if they're, luckily I have a really great coordinator and a really great assistant that handled like a lot of the nuts and bolts stuff. Yeah. So like I don't have to really like follow up on like, hey, are you going to meet this deadline, or this and that. Coordinator does that, communicates with the brands and lets them know what's happening. She basically, we have her act as like the mediator between the brand, the buyer, and the client. You really don't want everybody talking to the client directly, or they'll just try to go around you for some reason.
Right.
So yeah, it's mostly morning, catching up on emails, responding to emails. Like twice a week we have meetings. So there's a Monday morning meeting that we do virtually, and then on Wednesdays we're in this office here, our office, and so the managers meet up and we just trade information of what's going on with all the clients, what's going on with their clients, what's going on with your clients, what's going on with it. We kind of structure this management company like a talent agency, because not only I come from a talent agency, but the guy who owns it, Dustin Parker, comes from a talent agency as well. So we're kind of used to that type of thing. So we've divided up all the buyers into, like I have about 150 buyers I'm supposed to keep up with, and we divided up, with everybody. So that's another the Wednesday meetings is going through buyer needs and who's followed up on stuff and what's going on with this guy. So yeah, I mean, it's just basically morning emails and trying to get phone calls set up and conference calls set up, and then checking in with clients. I've been doing like a lot more signings lately. That's been a thing I've been kind of focused on right now, is getting more clients, more creator clients, because it's there's like, first of all, a creator's career can be pretty like short-lived. So it might be 5 years, it might be 10 years, but there's very few creators that started at YouTube at the beginning and are still making content.
Yeah. So it's just constantly restocking basically. And
yeah.
I hear you. Okay. No, that's interesting too.
Which you have to do in, with writers and reality producers. Sometimes they just can't seem to connect with a new buyer or the new buyer.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Finding the
It's quite similar. Okay. Well, I would like to shift into a new segment here, if we could, Chris, and it's something of Q&A discovery. We can kind of just continue this back and forth. And I'd kind of like to dive into your past a little bit here. I mean, listeners always love the origin stories and backstories, if you will. Were you originally from the LA area by any chance? No.
Grew up in San Antonio, went in the Navy, went into college in Utah, and then that's when I started kind of getting into like as I was starting to graduate, I was like, well, I'm kind of interested in the entertainment industry. I was working at the big theater there. I was doing IATSE, like building those big concert, like downtown, big concerts that come through. People have to build stages, and so I was into that part of it, like backstage and doing that stuff. But I wanted to come down there, and still didn't know what I wanted to do. Couldn't figure it out. Came down here, immediately got a job at Variety, the magazine first, and selling basically advertising on a compact disc version, like of all the production companies and services, which was horrible. So, and I ended up meeting somebody at William Morris, an assistant, and to one of the bigger agents at the time, and she got me an interview, and I did the whole William Morris assistant thing, which is basically thrown into the fire. So, which led me to go to Disney, and eventually, and I went to the whole management side because I just seemed to, I'm so old. I'm technically older, so I found that a lot of the development exec jobs were going to 20-year-olds, and you 30 trying to get into that. Sometimes they age you out really quickly. So. But management, you can make your own magic. I mean, one of my friends, Brooklyn Weaver, is a big time, lit manager. Basically, was told he could, he would never be promoted as an agent. Never. So he said, "Fuck it, I'm going to go do the, I'm going to manage people." And he did. And he went there and sat there and for 6 months meeting with, buyers and developing relationships and just reading. It was like, told me he just read constantly, and boom, now he's like a top, lit manager. So
there you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. In terms of what pulled you into, I guess, the influencer marketing, and you've kind of touched on this a little bit, maybe.
Oh yeah. I mean, I touched it with the event side. So I met I went to the first VidCon with a guy named Dave Days, who was a gigantic YouTuber at the time. And I befriended him before because I was working with a brand client, Monster Energy drink, and I had him come pick up a ton of Monster worst thing. And then we just kept talking, and I got him into events and stuff like that. And weirdly enough, I mean, I met a ton of people that were involved with influencer marketing. That led me to meeting the Viners at the beginning. So Dobro, Paul, the Paul brothers, like a ton of other ones, Gabby, Hannah, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then I still didn't, put two and two together that I have all these great relationships, and why am I not exploiting them for doing more with them? So after I went back into I was still in the event world after the whole pandemic. Dustin Parker called me and says, all these top, I'm looking at your Instagram, and like all these top YouTubers and everybody follow you. They're following you, and you seem to know them, and hell, you were in Dobrik's vlogs for many times. You should just do that. I mean, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything right now, so why not? And and it was just like stepping back into management. It was fine. It was just a matter of finding clients, and I found one that I really liked, and there you go. And then signed him 2 weeks later. So
no way. There you go. It's funny how things sort of work out in the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right place, right time. And I guess that kind of like that little push maybe by people within your own network recognizing your skills and abilities, and and what you had already built around you, and it was just ready for the taking essentially. So it's really interesting. In terms of, I guess, painting even a clearer picture of what you're doing as far as managing some of the talent, would you be able to maybe share with listeners some of maybe an example of an event that you might have some of your talent attending, or maybe a case study, for example, of something that they've done or they've been involved with, or you might help set up?
For event side, I had a bunch of like Coachella is usually the influencer Olympics there. I helped the Rolling Stone event. I helped them invite influencers, find influencers who were in town. I did that a couple times for Neon Carnival, so some of these bigger events. And that's when I was totally in the event world, because a lot of times I was involved with the production of those. So I wanted these influencers show up because they knew they might do a story or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
So so that recently I've been sending my New York client to film premieres like Disney and Netflix, and he and then during VidCon they had we had sat down with one of the Disney execs like beforehand, and he offered free trip to Disneyland for they were doing some like influencer meetup during VidCon, and I knew my guy was like the biggest Disney nut, and they're probably already buying tickets. So like I literally called him like a month before. I said, "Do not buy tickets to Disneyland. Do not buy tickets." And he goes, "Well, we're just about to." I go, "Why?" "Well, I'm not going to tell you, but until it's all confirmed, And then he got that, and then they ended up liking him so much they flew him out to Disney World and gave him a week's vacation.
Oh wow!
So, okay, it all leads to something. So
yeah. Okay, no, I think that kind of paints a nice picture, kind of clears things up for people a little bit even more so. In terms of something we were speaking about earlier, and I found this really interesting as well when researching for this talk. Obviously, again, this whole sort of sub-industry, which is just evolving of influencer marketing, is growing in so many different directions. And I mean, influencer marketing isn't something new necessarily. Obviously, like traditional celebrities have been doing it forever. But what is kind of new is this rise of micro influencers, I guess you could call them. And in terms of their sway, their power, their influence, and some are projecting these micro influencers to have more power and more sway than the traditional celebrity type.
I think for any influencer marketing strategy, it's all levels that you need to be looking at, not just. I think a lot of people, especially at the beginning of the whole micro influencer thing, a lot of these companies that were promoting micro influencers were PR agencies who were basically looking for people to post for free. And a lot of times there's now like groups out there like FYPM.VIP, which kind of like has decided that there's too much closeness on this. So they've created a database of influencer deals from micro influencer to you name it, mega influencer, so people can see what they're worth. But a lot of times, I always have the feeling that like a lot of our micro influencers get these horrible deals sent to them, like hey, $20 to post. Like, no, that's not going to happen. So a lot of them, like a lot of the micro influential world, I think it's a lot of people have a little bit of more of a wishful thinking that they have this much sway. But yeah, a lot of them have bigger, like can have larger engagements. But then again, I would always point to like, clients like, like my friends like Liza Koshy, who has a 23% engagement rate, which is bigger than any micro influencer ever had. So you can't tell me that it's one of the mega influencers don't mean anything. Nah, I think micro influencers have a part to play. The other thing is a lot of people look at micro influencers as bottom of the funnel. So basically, they are told to like if they don't make enough sales, then they're gone. But you got to look at everything like like all levels of funnel. Like Kim Kardashian would be a top of funnel thing, because even though she does get sales, or Beyonce does get sales, it's more awareness, brand lift, and that's equally it's hard to measure because you're not measuring sales. But then again, if micro influencers are bottom of the funnel, if your product is like in stores or like on Amazon and Amazon and every place else, and the only way you're tracking sales is through those coupon codes on your own site. But if you're available in stores, how do you know they didn't influence even more sales?
Right.
How do you pay for that? So a lot of micro influencers are totally sorry.
No problem.
A lot of micro influencers, can have great careers. It's just I feel a lot of them are getting taken advantage of, and they probably should be charging a lot more. If they're considered that valuable, they should be getting paid much more than most of them are paid.
Yeah. Well, what would you attribute?
No to a lot of deals for micro influencers.
Okay. What would you attribute their rise in any way, shape, or form, whether it's even just on the bottom rungs or even working their way up? What do you think it is that's really like allowed them to cut into this world, essentially, right? I mean, influencer marketing, again, traditionally was just.
I think it's all cost. Yeah. Because once the micro influencers started charging money, then suddenly, we love nano influencers, and these are people that are less than 10,000 followers. Okay, well, now you're just getting, there's so much work that has to be done to do a campaign of micro influencers and nano influencers, where you could have done that, get that same reach or at least eyeballs by hiring 2 mega influencers or something like that.
Right. So it's a cost.
Whatever name they come up next week for levels.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm a big fan of let's not focus on followers. Let's focus on how many people actually see the posts. Yeah. And that's a different number. Like I have one micro influencer right now that has like, I say 40,000 followers on TikTok, but his views are like 150 to 300,000 on average, which makes him like just as good as any a person with 1 million followers that only gets 150. It's the same 150. So people get a bit shocked when I say, hey, he's this price, and they go, well, he only has this many followers. I go, don't base it on followers. Look at the average views, and here's what TikTok has said about this guy. I usually have I download something from the creator marketplace, and as backup. So here's all the real numbers from TikTok. So but I think a lot of it's just they're lower cost, and you can do it for cheaper. So and I think a lot of it is like a lot of people like overestimate how their impact. I think that's just me. I have this viewpoint of that hey, they're just as good, but they're not the end all be all of influence.
Got it. Yeah, it's insightful. I mean, those are things that you can read the stats and you can read things online or elsewhere, but it helps to have that other perspective, somebody who's on the ground and can see it and understands the industry. So I really appreciate that.
And I've seen all these like this study came out, and the studies are all from companies that are selling micro influencers.
Right.
So I'm like, well, come on, like of course, they're going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Yeah. Okay. In terms of, I guess, shifting to another question here, in terms of deciding for you of maybe a talent to work with, obviously metrics are going to come into play here. That's going to be one thing, but outside of the metrics, is there anything else in particular that you're looking for?
Just people I enjoy. I mean, if it's somebody I like, like a lot of the people I've signed now are people I watch. So I've decided that I'm a great judge of talent because, believe me, I was picking out the Viners that were going to make it and become YouTubers long before, and people they go, oh, you knew about this guy before anybody else did. I go, yeah. So I've been just basing on what comes up in my feed, who I like, if they're sellable, if they have a format that's you can sell, and if they're brand friendly and everything like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I notice I don't have a lot of beauty influencers, not a world I understand, so I kind of avoid that. But there's our literally management companies that are solely beauty influencers. I'm more into comedy, more entertainment, where it's personality. I like personality. I don't like somebody just showing pictures of them on a beautiful beach and that's it.
Right.
Or doing dances and not ever talking to your audience. I think that's great. You did a dance, fantastic. But do you have a personality outside of that?
Yeah.
And you actually develop a community.
Okay.
So that's also key right now too. Influencer marketing is developing an actual community, and so there you go.
Okay. In terms of, I guess, your role in all of this, I mean, again, I have referenced this already. This whole industry is evolving so rapidly, so quickly, and it is so trendy. I mean, sometimes you'll have this platform which is just hitting it, and within it'll last for maybe 3 to 4 years or so, and then suddenly you've got something else coming through. And it just seems like it's never ending, which is exciting. I mean, no doubt it's exciting. But also on the flip side, it must be a little bit taxing at times for somebody like yourself or for anyone in that space who's got to constantly relearn, the new ways of, putting your talent into these situations that are going to be beneficial to them, and you fully understanding the platforms themselves and the space that they're operating within. What has that been like? I mean,
I think it's interesting. Like almost, I say once a week, somebody will reach out to me on LinkedIn with some new tech, new creator tech, new something or another. And I'm now having my assistant keep a list of everybody that we meet with, because I'm now losing oh wait, what was the guy's name that did that, and everything. So and with the whole metaverse and everything like that coming up, I mean, that's going to be confusing as hell for the next 4 years until it actually really takes off. So I'm constantly learning new stuff and reading a ton on Business Insiders, whatever the trend is on influencer marketing. I believe every morning I get a big Google alert with everything that's been written the last day about influencer marketing and trend. So I can know it. Because 10 years ago, you would have been, you've been talking about, 15 years ago, MySpace, or 10 years ago, MySpace. And now
right.
Will it put down YouTube? So, and now, MySpace is gone, Friendster is pretty much gone. And, or Friendster went, mostly like Asian companies, countries or something like that. So, and then there's a bunch of Chinese ones that are out there that are pretty gigantic. That I don't know about yet,
Exactly. Even TikTok itself. I mean, that one is a fairly rapid rise as well, at least within.
That was a rapid rise, and it was funny. 3 years, 4 years ago, as I was telling all my friends, you got to do TikTok. You got to learn about TikTok, and they weren't taking it seriously. And then suddenly, now Charlie D'Amelio is getting multi, season contracts for reality shows. And, products, product lines, and stuff like that. So
Okay. Well, it's interesting. I mean, in the course of doing this show, I'm interviewing people, tons of different industries constantly, and the one thing that kind of binds it all together, I find, at least the people that I've been speaking to, is the ones that seem the most satisfied and the most passionate about what they're doing have these elements embedded within their work. They're constantly discovering, constantly relearning new things, new ways. And sure, at times, I guess it can be a little bit tricky, taxing, difficult, whatever adjective you want to throw in there, with a negative connotation. But also too, it does offer this rewarding aspect to it as well, that I think is something that can't really be overlooked. And I'm sure for you as well, that would be something that would make your line of work at least compelling to a certain degree.
Right. It's a lot of relearning stuff, and and I'm sure in about 3 years there'll be a whole new things that we're now measuring success with campaigns differently. It's not about comments, or suddenly it will become about something else.
A new metric.
I think watch time is like the new thing. If the videos are being watched all the way through, or are they just dropping off in the middle? I think that was a TikTok thing that kind of really
driving that.
Drove that. So
see, it's fascinating. Like, that stuff is quite fascinating, how it just constantly is evolving, and the whole evolution of it. So
I think people who are just stuck on followers are just going to be making a lot of mistakes for the next couple of years. They figure out that, hey, just because somebody has 10 million followers doesn't mean they have 2 million eyeballs.
Yeah. Well, I had a guest on earlier, and he's on the agency side. So he runs a lot of campaigns for the agency essentially, and works with influencers there. And we had a little segment there where he was speaking about how some nefarious ways that some of the influencers are going about things in terms of building up their follower accounts, right? And for the agency side, I mean, they have the tools, obviously. I mean, pretty much anyone, you can find that out. You can discover that fairly quickly.
We use Critter IQ, and I can look up and find out how many fake followers you have on anything. So I know if you're for real or not. So the problem is that these bot farms, what they do is they follow everyone, not only the one who bought it, but then they follow everything. So I've been noticing that I get a lot of fake followers try to follow me, and I've been really I only want the people who who like me to have
genuine,
access.
it's authentic.
So, but who are genuine followers, but they follow everyone. So they not only are following that one who bought it, they're following Kim Kardashian, they're following you name it, this beauty influencer, and it hurts everybody. But I think I had an argument online recently where the guy was selling bots and stuff like that. I go, you're just screwing up the industry, and if you took money from I think some of these agencies should go after, if they find out that somebody had just a ton of fake followers, or they bought people to literally their all the likes are from Pakistan or or India. I think I'm a big fan of those guys going after those guys for fraud. Got fraud. Be better for the industry if they did that.
Well, if anything,
somebody and blame me.
Well, it's pushing maybe the industry as well to evolve. Like you said, watch counts, for example, a new metric that's going to be a little bit more spot on in terms of actually, measuring engagement, I suppose. So, okay. Well, I would like to shift over into a new segment here, if we can, Chris. Something called a water cooler story segment. And here I just asked, guests to indulge listeners with a story related to their work. So I'd love to hear what you got for us today.
So I signed this client, Alex Griswold, in mid-January, and he got an incoming query from a big company, and so a bunch of TikToks and some Instagram stuff and everything like that. And I negotiated the deal. And then I asked him, said, how much would you have charged for this without me? And he goes, probably $5,000, maybe 3,000. He was like, sure. And then I had to tell him I got him 20. So I basically tripled his income just from one deal. And I think after that, it was like, oh, okay. So you're not afraid. I'm like, you got to know your worth. And that's one of the good stories of showing clients that they're worth a lot more than what they do.
Well, it kind of
Yeah, I mean, I remember like 3 years ago when I was even managing, one of those TikTokers who had like constantly was getting 10 million views was going to make a deal, was making a deal with Dunkin' Donuts, and he he was scared to ask for $2,000, and I was like, dude, you should ask him for 9 or 10, and
Yeah.
he was like, no, I can't do that, I can't, and then he ended up closing it too, and it's like, all right, well, they got you for cheap,
Wow. Yeah.
congratulations.
I mean, that perfectly illustrates the role of somebody like yourself and what you can do
Yeah.
for people, right?
Oh yeah.
Fully understanding the industry and knowing, one, just what the rates are, and then also just recognizing talent too in terms of what they could achieve. Wow.
Oh
That's
yeah, I mean,
significant.
it's funny because like if I don't know what I should charge, I mean, I have like 4 other managers here that can give me guidance. So if it's something like an appearance fee or something like that, which I don't do a ton of, I there's one manager that's constantly negotiates those. So things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it must also kind of, tread into the world of, personal satisfaction as well, and seeing
Yeah,
that, that's another element I think to any successful career is being able to feel, your worth outside of like your own accomplishment, but helping another person sort of discover that too. It must be another sort of like perhaps overlooked aspect of the job, but when you stop and consider it all, it must be a rewarding one, I would assume.
yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's fun. It's not as high energy as talent agency work, but it's I think I'm actually making a difference in people's lives, and I know that I'm actually doing the job they needed done. They need somebody to take over that whole, like, they need to, like, I want my creators to focus on the creative side and
Yeah.
not worry about
The business
closing
side.
brand deals, or like dealing with what your merch looks like, or finding out, or sitting on phone calls with like different people pitching different things,
Yeah.
so like new apps and stuff like that. So
Right.
like let me handle that. I can handle all that from you, and you can focus on
What
focus
makes you
on
special.
creating great content that people like and people respond to. So,
Yeah, nice. Okay. Alrighty. Well, we are heading into the very last segment here, Chris, and it's something called the crystal ball segment. As the name implies, we're kind of looking towards the
right.
future, trends, predictions, so on and so forth. And in the spirit of the segment, I kind of dug up some stats that kind of really lay bare the dynamic nature of this influencer marketing, sphere. And I'd like just to read these off, maybe for you. I'm sure you're well aware of them, but more importantly for listeners, just so they can fully grasp this entire industry. So let me just read that off. In 2016, influencer marketing industry was estimated to be $1.7 billion in size. In 2020, that figure rose to 9.7 billion US dollars. 2021, 13.8, 2022, 16.4 billion. And 93% of marketers have used influencer marketing already, and almost all plan to use it more in the future. So here's the question for you. Obviously, we can see the trends here. Again, all these stats just as well as anyone. But where do you see things going moving forward? You've already kind of touched on maybe the metaverse, Web3 stuff, perhaps.
Yeah.
How do you see this whole industry evolving?
Well, I think we're going to see different players pop up, and I think some players are going to go away. So I think that's the first thing. Some platforms that we like are loving, Facebook, to name it, might go away in the next 5 to 10 years, and we'll probably will. Like one of the big ones will probably
drop off,
drop down, exactly. And then I think for the next few years, like recession wise, I just had this, everybody's like talking about, oh, things are bad, bad or anything. I've done more deals in the last 3 months than I have, in the last six months. So it seems to be increasing even more. So I think this industry is going to be a little bit recession proof, because recession or not, you still have to advertise your company. You still have to market your company. You can't just suddenly stop marketing, because guess what?
The approach doesn't change, but
but so I think these I think the trends are, there'll be a combining, new players will pop up and knock out old players. I think brand deals will still be going on right and left. I think that's, and then it's going to be I think it's going to be recession proof. I just have this
Mm.
nasty feeling that it's just not going to like, it's not going to, I'm not going to notice this. I'm not going to notice
Yeah.
that there's a recession going on if there is. So,
Yeah. Well, it could be one of those things you spoke about already. I mean, where they go after maybe micro influencers. The
right.
budgets are a little bit smaller. Okay, we're going to shift down into this segment here and go after this,
Exactly.
which still for your line of work is going to be fine because I'm sure you have your
Yeah,
funnels
because
filled.
I have influencers at all levels. I mean, I
Yeah,
have like
right.
big star influencers, but I also have a bunch of micro influencers, and this mantra company represents like at least 20 or 30 of those, and
Yeah.
and so we're closing deals at all levels. So we're
Yeah.
not like
Getting
I'm
insulated.
not like CA or like one of the big agencies, like only looking at the big stars.
Right,
I'm
right.
looking at every little level. So
That's interesting. It's really fascinating sort of, business approach to it all, I guess,
yeah,
as a way of sort of, like you said,
diversify. Yeah,
insulating you from, downturns in the economy in essence. So, okay.
yeah,
Well, I mean, today it's just been filled with tons and tons of different insights. I feel like just in the course of this conversation, I've learned so much more. I obviously research these things, get a good feel for it, but I feel like you filled in a lot of the gaps, and I'm sure listeners are going to have the exact same type of sentiment. So I can't thank you enough, Chris, for
sure.
coming on today. It's been really, really a great talk.
Awesome. Thanks for having
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. And for those interested in learning more about Chris and his work, you can find him on LinkedIn, and the links will be included in the show notes. Also, too, if you like today's show, please be sure to share. I mean, stuff goes a long ways. It certainly helps. You can also rate, review, and subscribe wherever you access your podcasts. And also, too, you can head on over to YouTube. Within the last year, we did launch a channel over there and check out full video conversations, much like the one we had today with Chris. And of course, too, please don't forget to tune in to the next episode of Life as a, where we'll continue to explore and unearth the details of professions and the people behind them. I'm your host, Christopher Schoenwald. Until next time, stay curious about life and living.